We're off and running. Welcome into the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr., and as always, no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. Coming up, Niners, Falcons preview. Good Week 7 matchup inside the NFC. This game's going to have a lot of playoff implications, and I can't wait for this primetime matchup. Kickoff is slated for 8:20 p.m. Eastern, 5:20 p.m. Pacific. The Niners, 2-point favorites. That line has kind of been hovering around the Niners as 1-point favorites, now 2. The over-under for this game, I think the odds makers expecting some offense in this affair, 47 even. We will be live right here on the San Francisco 49ers Report for another watch party as we go live for every single Niners game. The real ones say it's the best place to experience a Niners game day outside of being at the actual game. We'll be live for an hour pregame show, so lock us in and subscribe, and let's get to 178,000 subscribers here on the program. My initial thoughts on this game. This, of course, is going to be the Niners' first full game without Fred Warner. John Lynch did speak on Wednesday, on Thursday, and there's been some chatter about Warner potentially coming back at some point this season. I think the Niners have a lot of optimism about Warner coming back to be full strength for 2026, to be on the field for offseason workouts because it was just an ankle fracture and an ankle dislocation. Some doctors have said maybe he can come back for the Super Bowl if the Niners make it that far, but for the rest of the regular season, for a playoff run, most likely, Fred Warner not going to be with this team. And so how do the Niners adapt, adjust, and evolve? Tatum Bethune is going to get the start there. He's a really instinctual player. But, of course, we're talking about one of the best players in the history of the National Football League. This is also going to be a harder game than we anticipated. When the schedule came out, you looked at Niners-Falcons as a completely winnable game that the Niners should be victorious in. But this Falcons team has steadily improved over the last couple of weeks, and we'll take a look at the resume coming up here in a moment. They've had some quality wins, and they're really starting to find their stride on offense, and their pass rush is greatly improved. A win for the Niners to lift them to 5-2 would be big for their chances and opportunities of making a trade to help improve this defense and increase the pass rush. Because right now, I think that's a move that they need to make. And this game, given all of the weapons across the offensive side of the pill for Atlanta, will be a huge test for this Niners defense that not only is without Fred Warner, but also without Nick Bosa. And the Falcons are coming off a huge win, one of their biggest regular season wins in recent memory, factoring in how they accomplished that victory and the opponent it was against on primetime. And frankly, the score of 24-14 felt more like a 31-14 game. And Atlanta should have scored a touchdown right before halftime if Drake London didn't go out of bounds. Either way, though, their defense was really good, causing a lot of fits for Josh Allen. Josh Allen had one of the worst regular season games he's had in recent memory. And Atlanta able to win 24-14 with 21 of those points, I believe, coming in the first half. Josh Allen, 15-26 for only 180 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. And then for Atlanta, Michael Penix, very efficient, 20-32, 250 yards through the air and a touchdown. Bijan Robinson, 19 totes for $170 and a score. And then Drake London had a massive game when the Falcons were very light at the wide receiver spot. Ray McCloud, a healthy scratch. Darnell Mooney injured. And Drake London says, you know what? I'll put the passing attack on my back for our receiver room. 10 catches, 158 yards, and a touchdown. Could have had another one right before recess. The Falcons so far, I talk about their resume here. They were up late against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a Buccaneers team that just beat the Niners, a Buccaneers team that is 5-1, and they're currently the number 1 seed in the NFC. But Baker Mayfield had a game-winning drive late to lift Tampa Bay to a victory over Atlanta. Then the Falcons go on the road, one of the more hostile environments in the league, and they beat the Vikings 22-6, and they beat them soundly. Now, J.J. McCarthy got the start in that Week 2 game. He was not good, and the Falcons' offense didn't do much, but their defense really propelled them to a win. A weird loss, and one of the oddest losses of the year, was a 30-0 loss at the hands of the Carolina Panthers on the road for Atlanta in Week 3. They come off of that. They moved their offensive coordinator, Zach Robinson, to field level from the booth, and they beat the Commanders 34-27. Important to note, it was Marcus Mariota who got the start in that game, and it was not Jaden Daniels. Then the Falcons had an early bye. They come back in week 6, and they beat down on the Buffalo Bills 24-14. And when I scout the Falcons, Michael Penix last year showed some flashes when the Falcons surprisingly drafted him early, top 10 pick, after they had given Kirk Cousins $100 million in guaranteed money. What Penix did at Washington, very impressive. I was at the Natty between Washington and Michigan, and that year, Penix was superb, throwing with anticipation, throwing with precision to the boundary and to the sideline. He has a really strong arm where he can complete passes at all 3 levels. Now, in that Natty, a little bit overmatched, but that Michigan team tied the record for the most NFL draftees in a draft. That roster was loaded. And last year, you saw some moments out of the pistol where Penix was making some plays, but offensively, they were kind of a disaster. But the arm strength is there. The pocket feel is there. With the snap of a wrist, he can really spin it. Zach Robinson is a Sean McVay disciple who was in the booth calling plays. And then after they lost 30-0 to Carolina, Raheem Morris said, "We want you down on the field level." That has led to the Falcons offense playing a lot better. We've been waiting on this breakout Bijan Robinson season. It's happening before our very eyes. One of my predictions going into this year was that he was going to win Offensive Player of the Year. I think right now it's safe to say he's the best running back in football. So dynamic, running it and catching it. Drake London is a really tough cover because he moves well and he has great size. And this pass rush for Atlanta, this is a huge storyline, greatly improved because last year their defense stunk. Raheem Morris is a defensive guy, even though he's kind of coached everywhere on both sides of the ball throughout his coaching career. But the lack of pass rush really hurt them in all phases on defense in 2024. They allowed the highest completion rate, 69.9%, and the second most touchdowns a season ago with 34. The Falcons were also last in the NFL in sacks with only 31, and they were last in pressure percentage at 28.1%. But they made pass rush a draft priority early in the 2025 draft, taking 2 pass rushers in the first round, which caught a lot of people by surprise. And some of the existing players and some of their other pickups have helped this defense tremendously. And so it has been a pass rush group by committee. And you take a look at the sack numbers for Atlanta this year. Zach Harrison is leading the way with 2.5 sacks. You have Brandon Dorlus with 1.5 sacks. Caden Ellis, the linebacker, 1.5 sacks. Former Niner Leonard Floyd has given them some speed off the edge. 1.5 sacks for him. One of Chip's favorite players, Rukaroro, out of Clemson. 1.5 sacks from the defensive tackle spot. David Onyemata, 1 sack. And then you have the rookie Jalen Walker with 1. D. Alford, the corner, with 1. Sam Roberts, a defensive tackle, with 1. Billy Bowman, the safety, with the half sack. Divine Diablo with the half sack. And then the other rookie first-round pick out of Tennessee, James Pierce, with the half sack. We talked in the pre-draft a lot about Pierce and Walker for San Francisco. They've had some good moments this year. So you see that by committee, they've been able to get after the quarterback. As far as some injury news for the Niners, it took Kyle Shanahan 30 seconds during his Wednesday press conference to get through the Niners injury report, and he had to take like 6 deep breaths. And this isn't everybody, but these are the notable injuries for San Francisco. Brock Purdy, turf toe. George Kittle expected to come back. Hasn't played since week 1 because of that hamstring injury. Ricky Pearsall not really coming along all that well with that knee. Sometimes that can be hard for wide receivers. Jauan Jennings is hurt everywhere. Ribs, ankle, shoulder. Dominic Pooney did not practice on Wednesday. I'm recording this early Thursday. If he can't go, it could be Drew Moss or Nick Sakel at right guard. And the Niners offensive line has already been bad this year. Sky Moore, return man, ankle. He didn't practice on Wednesday. Jordan Watkins didn't either, calf. And then you have CJ West thumb, Kalia Davis hand, and Renardo Green neck. He came back off that injury against the Buccaneers, but he did miss that Rams game because of a neck injury. And as far as Brock Purdy goes, the expectation is that Purdy is not going to play in this game against Atlanta. They want to give that toe another week to rest. Now, I was the bad guy for saying that Purdy shouldn't play against Jacksonville, that the Niners messed up. They goofed. They made a mistake. They rushed it. But the Niners are holding him out of this game because they don't want to see happen what happened against Jacksonville where he re-aggravates that turf toe. I was right. People got mad at me, and now the Niners have learned their lesson. I'm glad they have. So, Mac Jones, most likely going to get the start again. I think that in his 4 starts, he has fared very well. 3-1 as a backup, you'll always take it. His ability to throw from inside the pocket has looked elite this year. Now, obviously, behind a bad offensive line, his inability to create out of structure because he's not mobile sometimes hurts this Niners offense. But from a passing standpoint, the production has been terrific. He's averaging well over 300 passing yards per game in his 4 starts with the Niners. The Falcons injury report. These players did not participate on Wednesday. Edge rusher Jalen Walker, groin. Cornerback Clark Phillips, triceps illness. Cornerback Billy Bowman, hamstring. Edge rusher Leonard Floyd, illness. And offensive tackle Jake Matthews, ankle. So I do want to know who you got in this football game. I'll give you my prediction coming up here in a little while. ATL for Atlanta, SF for San Francisco. Share your thoughts with me down in the comment section right now. Coming up next, you don't want to miss this. We're really going to get into the nitty-gritty X's and O's, matchups to watch, keys to the game for the Niners to pull out a win. So stay tuned for that. It's coming up just around the corner. But let's get to our sponsor, our friends at PrizePicks, making today's San Francisco 49ers report possible. This is America's #1 fantasy sports app. Turn your takes into cash, pick, predict, play. You can get your picks in less than 60 seconds. And all you have to do is play the more or less game. You choose more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you can win some big-time money. It's also available in 45-plus states all across America. They also have some new features. PrizePicks, the only app that offers stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. You want to pick more on Mac Jones's pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns? Now you can pick all of them in the same lineup, for instance, only on PrizePicks. You can also follow other PrizePicks players directly on the app and copy their lineups in one click. Whether it's a friend, a celebrity partner, or just somebody whose picks you like, hit the follow button and check out every lineup they create in the new feed tab on PrizePicks. 2-pick power play for some primetime football on Sunday night. Bijan Robinson more on the 80.5 rushing yards. Christian McCaffrey more on the 54.5 receiving yards. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. All right, to the back half of our preview here. Welcome into the San Francisco 49ers report. Chase Senior hanging out here with you. Really excited to dive into this here on the program. Niners, Falcons, big game in the NFC coming up on Sunday Night Football. So what we're about to break down and dissect, keys to the game, matchups to watch, what the Niners must do to win this game, and of course my prediction. Let's set the foundation and set the table by taking a look at how both of these teams fare on both sides of the football. Offensively for Atlanta, that 30-0 loss against Carolina has brought down their points per game, but the last 2 games, they've really started to get it together offensively, and you see that based upon some of these other numbers here. But they are 27th in points per game at 20. But they're number 2 in yards per game offensively in the NFL at 378.8. So they have really moved it. 5.7 yards per play, that's 10th. They're good on third downs, converting 41.7% of those third down opportunities. They have struggled to punch the ball into the end zone. Number 27 in red zone touchdown scoring percentage at 43.7%. To the defensive side of the ball, giving up just 20 points per game. That's 7th. Yards per game, number 1 in the NFL defensively there. Yards per play, 4.8. That coincides with the yards per game number. Third down efficiency, number 4. So the 4th best third down defense at getting off the field. But in the red zone, they are a little bit lacking there, 66.6%. That ranks 24th. For the Niners offensively, 24th in points per game at 20.8. A lot of instability at the quarterback spot and on offense with all these injuries. Hopefully, they can start to find their groove. The return of George Kittle should help them running the ball, put up points, and in the red zone, and obviously help out and aid this passing attack. Yards per game, the Niners have not struggled there, so that'll be a good matchup with Atlanta. 373.7. Yards per play, not a ton of explosives because of the injuries. When Kendrick Bourne is your number one, that's going to happen. You don't have a lot of field stretchers. 5.4. The Niners, the fourth best third down offense in the NFL, but in the red zone, the struggles continue. 28th there at 42.8%. This Niners defense has started to slip a little bit without Nick Bosa. Now they're without Fred Warner moving forward. 15th in points per game, 15th in yards per game, 18th in yards per play. They are the fifth best third down defense in the NFL, and the red zone defense has started to go down a little bit with all of these injuries. 20th there at 61.1%. With that, my keys to the game for the Niners to pull off a victory here and stop a hot Cardinal or a Falcons team, different bird, that's coming into Levi's Stadium on Sunday night. Number one, you got to stop Bijan Robinson. I think right now he's the best running back in football, and he's one of the best overall, all-around offensive players in the game. We've been waiting for this breakout to happen. At Texas, a star-studded prospect. As he's played for Atlanta, as a collective offensive unit, they really haven't been able to get it together. This is the year, though, where he's really started to find his stride, and that's coincided with the Falcons' offense playing a lot better and more consistently. This season, look at these numbers running the football. 83 carries for 484 yards. Ladies and gentlemen, 484 rushing yards through 5 games played. He's also picking up 5.8 yards per carry. That is an absurd number. He has 2 rushing touchdowns. But he's not just going to hurt you running the ball. And when he runs it, it's in between the tackles, it's getting out to the edge, and he's a home run threat. He can also excel in catching the ball. This is why when he was coming into the draft out of Texas, he was a top 5 overall player on my board. Very rarely do I view running backs in that manner, but Bijan's that special. 24 catches, 338 yards, and another touchdown through the air. And not only has the absence of Nick Bosa hurt the Niners' pass rush, obviously, he's one of the top pass rushers in the game. Funny enough, we're seeing his value as a run defender come to light without him on the field because the Niners' rushing defense has struggled mightily without Nick Bosa as well. Before the Bosa injury, the Niners were giving up 3.68 yards per carry. After the Bosa injury, San Francisco is surrendering 4.5 yards per carry. That is a 23% decline in rush defense efficiency. A big reason for this, too, is because of the personnel packages that the Niners and Robert Saleh were able to use when Bosa was healthy. He could play defensive end. He could play defensive tackle. Bryce Huff could play defensive end, which could slide Sam Okuanu, Yetur Gross-Matos, and Mykel Williams on the inside. But without Bosa, you can't do as much of that. So this has been a concerning regression for the Niners with the rush defense efficiency going downhill. How's it going to get any better with Fred Warner now out for the rest of the year? He dislocates and fractures his ankle, and he has done such a great job of being an elite run defender, putting his defense in a position to make plays and be successful. I will say this about Tatum Bethune. 7th round pick out of Florida State, kind of slow, but he's instinctual. He plays with good feel. He can read and diagnose plays. At Florida State, I liked him in the pre-draft because he's good against the run. And I think you'll see a little bit of that early on from him. But in the pass game, how does he hold up? Because he lacks some of that lateral quickness and really that vertical speed to cover the seam. Key to the game number 2. Can this 49ers offensive line please just give Mac Jones a chance on Sunday Night Football against Atlanta? Now, in 2024, the Falcons had one of the worst defenses in the NFL, and they had one of the worst pass rushes in the NFL. This year, though, they're a lot better, and they're one of the best teams at sacking the quarterback, and they've gotten production from everywhere. All of these following players have at least a half sack on your screen. James Pierce, Divine Diablo, Billy Bowman, Sam Roberts, D. Alford, Jalen Walker, David Onyemata, Rook Ororo, Leonard Floyd, Caden Ellis, Brandon Dorlus, Zach Harrison. And if you look at all the positions listed there, they're getting sack production because they're creative and exotic as a defense from all types of different positions. Defensive end, check. Defensive tackle, check. Linebacker, check. Corner, check. Safety, check. So they will do a couple of things to really try to confuse this Niners offense. And up front, this Niners offensive line has been putrid, both against pressure looks and even when teams just send 3 or 4 because they get bullied, especially along the interior. And this Falcons defense, this is a huge jump from last year when they allowed the highest completion rate in football at 69.9%. They gave up the second most touchdowns at 34. They were last in the NFL in sacks with 31, and they were last in pressure percentage at 28.1%. And Atlanta, not going to quite be as aggressive as Todd Bowles usually is, but we know Todd Bowles is a very aggressive defensive mind and play caller too, right? And that Bucs pass rush was unrelenting against Mac Jones. I mean, he didn't have an opportunity back there to have success. He was starting to see ghosts because he got hit so much. The Buccaneers against the Niners in Week 6 registered 22 total pressures, 11 hurries, 6 sacks for a pressure rate of 11.3%. If this happens again to the Niners, they will not beat the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday night. Key to the game number 3. Let's stick with this awful offensive line that might put me in an insane asylum by the time that the season is over. This Niners offensive line needs to run block, and they just need to find a way to execute and figure it out. Now, I think it's because of a lack of personnel. They're not strong enough physically along the interior. But can you have some more stretch runs? Can you have some pitches to the outside to give Christian McCaffrey easier running lanes where visibly he can see it? Perhaps. Can you run some end arounds, some jet sweeps? Just do something to try to get this Niners non-existent run game going, because this isn't sustainable for Kyle Shanahan's offense. The Niners are dead last in yards per carry at 3.1. We're talking about a Kyle Shanahan run-heavy scheme here, ladies and gentlemen. They're 16th in rushing attempts per game at 26.8. So clearly they're at least trying, but they're 30th in rushing yards per game at 82.2, and they only have 1 rushing touchdown all year. I believe they only have 1 rushing play of 20-plus yards all season long. It's ridiculous. And so I've been trying to figure out what's going on with this Niners run game. To me, upon looking at the tape, looking at the numbers, it's the offensive line. It's not Christian McCaffrey. Now, is Christian McCaffrey as fast and as explosive as he was in 2023? No. He's an older back, and last year he had a couple of really severe injuries. But look at these yards before contact numbers this year compared to 2023 when McCaffrey won Offensive Player of the Year. The first set of numbers from Sumer Sports. I saw this and I'm like, I got to look at a couple of different databases. So in 2023, McCaffrey's yards before contact, 1.85 yards. This year, it is less than a yard. And that makes sense, right? Because how often have we seen McCaffrey get a handoff and immediately he is just corralled and swallowed up by defenders in the backfield for TFLs? Then I look at the Pro Football Reference numbers. And same 2 years, right? 2023, 2025. Yards before contact for CMC, 3.1 in 2023. 1.9 here in 2025. It's bad, man. It's really bad. Key to the game number 4. The Niners have to limit explosive plays. And this has been a constant issue without Nick Bosa. And then once Fred Warner went out, the Buccaneers were able to average 7.5 yards per play, and for the game, 7 yards per play. Not going to win a lot of football games playing defense like that because every 2 plays is a first down for the opposition on average. And so you look at the Niners' problems with explosives. I also dug these numbers up. Before Bosa's injury, per Sumer Sports, weeks 1 through 3, the Niners gave up 5.3 explosive plays per game. These are plays of 10 plus yards. 4 through the air, 1.3 on the ground. After Bosa's injury, it's gone up to 9 explosive plays given up per ball game, 6 through the air, 3 on the ground. And the pass plays specifically up on average from 4 to 6. This Atlanta offense, they have weapons all over the place. Bijan Robinson is their number one. Tyler Algier is one of the top backup backs in the NFL. Michael Penix can spin it. You have Drake London. Kyle Pitts is a freakishly gifted and athletic tight end who can kind of play hybrid wide receiver. He's starting to get it going. This is going to be a hard cover for this Niners defense in Week 7 on Sunday night. And then lastly, is Atlanta ready for this moment? What I mean by this, they just won their biggest regular season game in years, taking down the Buffalo Bills in primetime Monday Night Football. Nobody thought that Atlanta was going to win that game and take down Josh Allen. What happened the prior week in primetime? The Jacksonville Jaguars had their biggest regular season win in years, beating the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think they had lost to Kansas City like 10 or 11 straight times. What happened the following week for Jacksonville? Letdown spot at home against Seattle. And they made a lot of mistakes, and that was the classic letdown spot for Jacksonville. Is this going to be the letdown spot for Atlanta? Sometimes human nature factors into results, and that is a talking point in this game. I want to see if Atlanta is ready for this moment. The other thing, too, the Niners have the rest advantage because the Falcons played on Monday Night Football, and they have to travel across the country. So are the Niners going to be the fresher team? We know they're the more banged up team, but with the current players who are healthy, could they be the fresher and sharper team? Predict the score, Atlanta, San Francisco, Sunday Night Football. I'm really excited for this matchup. And you know what? I want the Niners to prove me wrong here. I am just really concerned about how this defense is going to fare against this high-octane offense that comes into Santa Clara playing confident football. And I think it's going to take a couple of games for the Niners to adjust for life post Fred Warner. And I'm not sure they can make that adjustment in 1 week. So you're without Nick Bosa, you're without Fred Warner. Now you have to find a way to stop this offense. I think the Niners struggle in that area. Plus, I think the Niners offensive line is going to be killing them. So I think the Niners fall in this game 28-25. I hope I'm wrong, but that's my prediction.